squad car smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. I sat in the back with my hands cuffed behind me, watching streetlights slide past the window. May 5th, 2023, 10:17 p.m. The officer driving had the radio turned low, dispatch voices crackling, codes I didn't understand. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories reach. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. New stories every day. They'd pulled me out of my apartment 20 minutes earlier. 2 uniforms at the door, warrant in hand, reading me rights while my neighbor watched from across the hall. Felony assault. A man matching my description had put someone in the hospital outside a bar on Hennepin Avenue 3 nights ago. Same height, same build, same dark coat. I hadn't been to a bar in 8 months. The station was bright and cold. They processed me at a counter with chipped laminate edges, photo, fingerprints, personal effects into a manila envelope. My phone went in last. The officer, a woman with gray temples and tired eyes, sealed the envelope and asked if I needed to make a call. 1 call, she said. Now or after booking? Now. She led me to a phone mounted on the wall near the holding area, handed me a card with instructions printed in English and Spanish, picked up the receiver, heavy institutional plastic, and dialed the only number I knew by heart. It rang 4 times before he answered. Donald Blake. Background noise, voices, laughter, the clink of glassware. A gala. I'd forgotten. Dad, it's Henry. Henry? A pause. The noise dimmed slightly like he'd stepped into a hallway. What's going on? I've been arrested. I kept my voice level. Felony assault. I didn't do it. But I need you to… Henry, I'm at the Guthrie Foundation event. I'm giving remarks in 10 minutes. I'm facing charges. They think I assaulted someone. I need you to verify I was home that night. May 2nd. You called me around 9, remember? We talked about Grandma's birthday. Silence. Then, I don't recall that conversation. You called from the car. You asked if I'd sent flowers. Henry, his tone sharpened. This is not the time. Call your mother. She can… Mom's dead. The words came out flat. She's been dead for 6 years. Another pause. Longer. I could hear someone in the background. A woman's voice, asking if everything was all right. Then call someone else, my father said. I can't help you right now. The line went dead. I stood there with the receiver against my ear, listening to the dial tone. The officer was waiting 5 feet away, arms crossed, watching me without expression. I hung up slowly. No one coming? She asked. No. She nodded once, like she'd expected that, and gestured toward the holding area. The cell had 6 bunks, but I was alone. Steel bench, concrete floor, fluorescent lights that never shut off, a toilet in the corner with no seat. The walls were cinder block, painted pale green decades ago. Someone had scratched a calendar into the block near the floor. Marks in sets of 5, counting days. I sat on the bench and pressed my palms against my knees. My hands were shaking. May 2, 2023. I'd been home all night. Takeout from the Thai place on Lyndale, Netflix on my laptop, asleep by 11. No witnesses, no receipts. I'd paid cash. My phone's location data would show my apartment, but defense attorneys had explained that kind of evidence was circumstantial. Phones can be left behind. The man they were looking for had put someone in intensive care. Fractured skull, broken jaw, internal bleeding. The bartender had given a description. 6'1", dark coat, buzzed hair, glasses. I was 6'1". I owned a dark coat. I'd buzzed my hair after leaving my job in 2021. Easier than maintaining it. I wore glasses. The victim's boyfriend had picked me out of a photo lineup. Said he was pretty sure. I thought about the call. My father's voice. Not angry, not worried, just inconvenienced. Call your mother, like he'd forgotten. Like the last 6 years had been erased in the span of a gala dinner and a keynote speech. I thought about the conversation he claimed not to remember. May 2nd, 9:04 p.m. He'd called while driving home from the office, asked if I'd ordered flowers for Grandma Blake's birthday. I'd said no, that I'd visit her grave instead. He'd said that was fine, that Margaret was handling the family arrangement. The call had lasted 3 minutes and 41 seconds. I knew because I'd checked my phone log the next morning, wondering if I'd imagined the stiffness in his voice. I had not imagined it. At some point, I lay down on the bench. The fluorescent lights burned through my closed eyelids. I could hear footsteps in the hallway, officers changing shifts, someone being brought in, a door slamming. The freeway was close. I could hear the low hum of traffic, steady and distant, like the building was breathing. I thought about my grandmother. Ruth Blake, born 1936, died 2019. She'd raised me more than my father had. Summer weeks at her house in Edina, teaching me to play chess on her porch, letting me read in her study while she worked on watercolors. She'd left me her chess set in her will. My father had delivered it in a cardboard box, no note, 2 weeks after the funeral. I thought about Margaret, my stepmother, who had entered the family 3 years after my mother died. Polite, distant, efficient. She ran a non-profit foundation and attended galas. She sent care packages on holidays. Impersonal, tasteful. Once, she'd asked if I was seeing anyone. I'd said no. She'd said that was probably for the best. I thought about Joshua, my stepbrother, Margaret's son from her first marriage. 28, law student, estranged from Donald for reasons no one discussed. He'd reached out twice since I'd left my job. Coffee, awkward silences, an offer to help if I ever needed anything. I'd declined. I didn't know him well enough to trust him. I thought about the call. I'm giving remarks in 10 minutes. I turned onto my side and stared at the scratched calendar on the wall. They brought me breakfast at 6:40 a.m. Powdered eggs, white bread, orange juice in a plastic cup. I ate because I knew I should. A public defender arrived at 8:15, a woman in her early 30s with a canvas briefcase and coffee-stained notepad. She introduced herself as Lena Ortiz, sat across from me in a gray interview room, and asked me to walk through the timeline. I told her everything. She took notes, asked clarifying questions, frowned at the mention of the photo lineup. When I finished, she leaned back and tapped her pen against the table. "The boyfriend's identification is weak," she said, "but without an alibi witness, this goes to trial. Do you have anyone who can verify your location that night?" "My father," I said. "He called me at 9, but he says he doesn't remember." She wrote something down. "Will he testify?" "No." "Why not?" I looked at the table. Water-stained laminate, scratched initials near the edge. He was busy. She studied me for a long moment, then closed her notebook. "Bail hearings this afternoon. I'll request release on your own recognizance. You have a job? Freelance financial analysis. Remote. Good. Stay reachable. Don't leave the state." She left. The door clicked shut. They moved me back to the holding cell. A new officer, younger, heavier, bored expression, checked his clipboard and unlocked the gate. I stepped inside. He locked it again, turned, and paused. "Next of kin," he said, reading from the clipboard. "Donald Blake." He looked up. "Says here he declined to be contacted. That right?" I nodded. He made a note, clipped the pen back onto the board, and walked away. I sat on the bench and stared at the pale green wall. Somewhere down the hall, a phone was ringing. No one answered. The bail hearing lasted 11 minutes. Judge Martinez, mid-50s, reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewed my file without expression. Lena argued for release on recognizance. No prior record, stable address, cooperative with arrest. The prosecutor, a thin man in a wrinkled suit, requested $50,000 bail. "Violent felony, Your Honor. Victim remains hospitalized." The judge set bail at $25,000. Cash or bond. I had $3,800 in my checking account. Lena walked me through the process in the hallway outside the courtroom. "You need 10% for a bondsman, $2,500. Do you have that?" "No." She exhaled slowly, glanced at her watch. "Family? Friends? I'll figure it out." She gave me her card, told me to call when I had the money, and disappeared into the next courtroom. I sat on a bench in the hallway for 40 minutes, trying to think. My phone was still in the manila envelope at the station. I couldn't access my bank account, couldn't call anyone. The few friends I'd had from my analyst days had drifted after I left the firm. Awkward lunches that stopped being scheduled, texts that went unanswered. I didn't blame them. I'd become difficult to be around. A bailiff approached. "You waiting for someone?" "No." "Then you need to leave the building." I left. The station returned my belongings at 4:15 p.m. Phone, wallet, keys, watch. I signed the release form and walked 6 blocks to a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi. Ordered a black coffee I didn't drink and opened my banking app. 3,1047.22. I sat there staring at the number for 20 minutes. Then I opened my contacts. Scrolled past Donald's name. Once, twice. Stopped at a number I hadn't called in 2 years. Elena Ruiz, my ex-girlfriend's mother. We dated for 8 months in 2021 before I left the firm. Carmen had been patient, supportive, everything I wasn't capable of reciprocating. When I ended it, I'd sent a coward's text at 2 in the morning. She'd responded with 3 words. I understand. Goodbye. Elena had sent me a Christmas card that year anyway, and the next. No return address, just her name in careful script. I called. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Henry? Mrs. Ruiz, I'm sorry to, I know this is, are you all right? I told her. Not everything, just enough. Arrested, bail set, no family. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, How much do you need? I can't ask you to. How much, Henry? $2,500. Silence. I thought she'd hung up. Then, I'll meet you at the bondsman. Text me the address. She was there in 40 minutes. Handed the bondsman a cashier's check, signed the paperwork, refused my attempt to discuss repayment. Outside, she walked me to her car, a silver Camry with a rosary hanging from the rearview mirror. Carmen doesn't know I'm doing this, she said. And she won't, understood? Yes. You'll go to your court dates. You'll answer when your lawyer calls. You'll fix this. I will. She looked at me for a long moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a folded envelope. There's $800 in here. Find a place to stay. Eat. Don't disappear. I tried to refuse. She pressed it into my hand and drove away. I found a motel on Lake Street. Weekly rates, no questions. A parking lot full of dented sedans and cargo vans. The room smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke. 2 double beds with floral bedspreads. A TV bolted to the dresser. A bathroom with rust stains in the sink. I paid for 2 weeks up front, $420, and locked the door. It was 7:30 p.m. I sat on the bed closest to the window and turned on my phone. 17 missed calls. 4 voicemails. The first was from Lena. Call me when you post bail. The second was from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Blake, this is Hennepin County Court Administration, confirming your arraignment date, June 2nd, 9 a.m. The third was Joshua. Henry, hey, it's Josh. I heard what happened. Dad won't talk about it, but Margaret told me. Look, if you need anything, I don't know, a place to crash, someone to talk to, just call me, okay? I mean it. The fourth was Donald's assistant, Claire. Professional, clipped. Henry, your father asked me to pass along contact information for a defense attorney. James Torrance, downtown firm, very experienced. I'm emailing you his details. Best of luck. No call from Donald. I deleted the voicemail and opened my email. Claire's message was there, sent at 3:47 p.m. Subject line, attorney referral. Body text, 3 sentences, a phone number, a website link. No greeting, no signature. I closed the email and lay back on the bed, stared at the popcorn ceiling, water stained in the corner. Outside, traffic hummed on Lake Street. A bus braked with a hydraulic hiss. Someone shouted in the parking lot. I thought about the call. I'm giving remarks in 10 minutes. I thought about the cashier's check. Elena Ruiz, a woman I'd failed her daughter, bailing me out while my father sent an assistant's email. I thought about the envelope. $800. Don't disappear. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But I'd stopped being able to cry sometime in 2021, after the 3rd panic attack, after the mandatory leave, after the morning I'd stood in my bathroom and couldn't remember why I was there. I just lay there. The ceiling didn't answer. June 2nd, 2023. Arraignment. I wore the same clothes I'd been arrested in. Jeans, gray sweater, scuffed boots. Lena met me outside the courtroom, briefcase in hand, and walked me through what to expect. Plead not guilty. Waive reading of charges. Next court date in 3 weeks. Will it go to trial? I asked. Probably. Unless they find the real guy or the boyfriend recants. She paused. Has your father agreed to testify? No. She made a note. I'll subpoena him if necessary. The hearing lasted 6 minutes. I stood before Judge Martinez, stated my name, entered my plea. She set a preliminary hearing for June 23rd and released me on the existing bail. I walked out of the courtroom into the fluorescent hallway. Donald was not there. Margaret was not there. Joshua was sitting on a bench near the elevators. He stood when he saw me, awkward, hands in his pockets. Hey, I thought you might want company. After. I didn't know what to say. There's a diner across the street, he said. I'm buying. We sat in a booth by the window. Joshua ordered coffee and pancakes. I ordered toast I didn't eat. He asked about the case. Careful questions, lawyer in training precision. I answered in short sentences. He didn't push. After a while, he set down his fork and looked at me. My mom told me what happened, he said. The phone call, the gala. I said nothing. I don't understand him, Joshua continued. I stopped trying years ago, but this, he shook his head. This is different. Why are you here? I asked. He blinked. What? You barely know me. We've had coffee twice. Why are you here? He looked out the window. A bus passed, windows fogged. Because no one else is. I didn't have a response to that. He paid the check. Outside, he handed me a folded piece of paper. My number. If you need anything, court rides, someone to talk to, whatever. I know I'm not. I know we're not close. But I'm here. I took the paper. He nodded once and walked toward the light rail station. I stood on the sidewalk and watched him disappear into the crowd. The motel room became my office. Laptop on the desk, files spread across the bed, phone charging on the nightstand. I took freelance contracts when I could find them. Financial audits, compliance reviews, data analysis for small firms. The work was mechanical, numbing. I billed $60 an hour and tried not to think about the $140,000 salary I'd walked away from. At night, I lay awake and listened to the motel. Doors slamming, voices through thin walls, the ice machine clanking down the hall. I thought about the case, the boyfriend's identification, the lack of physical evidence, Lena's growing concern that without an alibi witness, a jury might convict on circumstantial reasoning alone. I thought about the call log on my phone. May 2nd, 2023, 9:04 p.m. Duration, 3:41. I thought about Donald's voicemail silence. I thought about the clipboard. Next of kin, Donald Blake, declined. On June 15th, I opened a new document on my laptop, titled it Timeline. Started listing dates, calls, messages, not for the case. For me. I didn't know why yet, but I knew it mattered. September 28th, 2023. Thursday, 2:47 p.m. Lena called while I was reviewing a client's expense report in the motel room. Her voice was different, lighter, faster. They got him, she said. I set down my pen. Who? The actual guy. Duluth police arrested him yesterday on an unrelated assault. Ran his DNA through the system. Came back as a match for the Hennepin case. The boyfriend recanted this morning. Prosecutors dropping all charges. I sat very still. Outside, a truck reversed in the parking lot, beeping steadily. Henry? You there? I'm here. You need to come downtown tomorrow. Sign paperwork. Get the dismissal order. Then you're done. Okay. This is good news, she said, cautious now. You understand that, right? Yes. Call me if you need anything. She hung up. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the laptop screen. Numbers in columns. Receipts uploaded, categorized, cross-referenced. 4 months of freelance work. 4 months of court dates, bail conditions, night sweats, strangers asking where I worked, why I looked familiar. I closed the laptop. The room was quiet. Traffic on Lake Street, the hum of the air conditioning unit. My phone on the nightstand, screen dark. I thought about calling someone, Joshua, Elena, Lena, to say thank you properly. I didn't. I lay back on the bed and watched the ceiling fan turn. 3 blades, slightly uneven, making a faint clicking sound with each rotation. 4 months. I'm giving remarks in 10 minutes. September 29th, 2023. I signed the dismissal paperwork at the courthouse at 10:15 a.m. The clerk stamped it twice, handed me a copy, and gestured toward the exit. Lena walked me out, shook my hand, said she was glad it was over. Your record will be sealed, she said. Technically, this never happened. I nodded. You gonna be all right? Yes. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Take care of yourself, Henry. I took the bus back to the motel, unlocked the door. The room smelled like old carpet and the Chinese takeout I'd eaten 2 nights ago. I set the dismissal order on the desk next to my laptop and stood there looking at it. State of Minnesota versus Henry Blake. Dismissed. I thought about the call I should make to Donald, to tell him it was over, that I'd been right, that the system had worked. I thought about his voice. Call your mother. I sat down and opened my laptop instead. The eviction notice was taped to my door on October 3rd. Standard form, county letterhead. Failure to renew lease. Vacate premises by October 15th, 2023. I'd missed the renewal deadline, hadn't checked my mail in 3 weeks, hadn't thought about it. I called the motel office. The manager, a man named Darren with a smoker's rasp, said he'd already rented the room. Should have renewed in September. Can't help you now. I had 12 days. I spent the first 2 packing. I didn't own much. Clothes, laptop, a box of documents from the case, the chess set from my grandmother. Everything fit in 4 cardboard boxes and a duffel bag. On the 3rd day, I started searching for apartments. Nothing available under $1,200 a month. I had $2,100 in my account. On the 4th day, I stopped searching for apartments and started searching for something else. I opened a browser window and typed Blake & Associates Estate Planning Minneapolis. Donald's firm had a clean corporate website. Headshots of 6 attorneys, Donald at the top left. Founding partner. Specializing in estate planning, probate, and trust administration since 1987. I clicked through the pages. Services, testimonials, contact information. Nothing I didn't already know. I opened a new tab and searched. Donald Blake Probate Cases, Minnesota. Public court records. Dozens of filings. Estate administrations, will contests, trust amendments. I scrolled through them, skimming names and dates. Most were routine. A few stood out. High-value estates, contested distributions, disputes between heirs. One case caught my attention. In re estate of Ruth Blake, deceased. Filed October 2019. My grandmother. I clicked the link. The docket showed standard probate proceedings. Petition for formal administration. Inventory of assets. Final distribution order. Filed by Donald Blake, personal representative. Closed March 2020. I downloaded the final distribution order. Scanned through it. The estate had been valued at $847,000. Her house in Edina, retirement accounts, savings. Distributed according to her will, $500,000 to Donald, $200,000 to a charity, $100,000 to Margaret, $47,000 in personal property to various individuals. My name appeared once. Chess set, valued at $200, to Henry Blake. I read it 3 times. Then I opened a new search. Ruth Blake Trust Amendment, Minnesota 2019. Trusts aren't always public record, but amendments filed in probate often are, especially if they're referenced in estate distributions. I found it on the 4th page of results. Amendment to the Ruth Blake Revocable Living Trust dated July 15, 2019. I downloaded the PDF, 12 pages, legal boilerplate, signatures on the last page. I skimmed the language, standard trust structure, Donald as trustee, remainder beneficiaries listed in Section 4. Section 4, B. In the event the primary beneficiary, Donald Blake, predeceases the grantor, contingent beneficial interest shall pass to Henry Blake in full. I stopped. Read it again. Contingent beneficiary. If Donald died before my grandmother, I would have inherited the trust. I scrolled to the signature page. Dated July 15, 2019. Witnessed by Margaret Blake and Claire Stevenson, Donald's assistant. My grandmother had died August 3, 2019, 3 weeks after the amendment. I sat back. The motel room felt smaller. Outside, someone's car alarm went off, chirping in short bursts. I opened my timeline document, added a new entry, July 15, 2019, Grandmother's Trust amended. I'm named contingent beneficiary, August 3, 2019, Grandmother dies. May 5, 2023, arrested. Donald declines to help. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched Blake & Associates contact information. The family attorney, the one who'd handled my grandmother's estate, was listed on the website. Martin Kessler, Senior Associate, Trusts and Estates. I wrote down his number. I called on October 7th. A receptionist answered, transferred me to Kessler's voicemail. I left a message. Mr. Kessler, this is Henry Blake. I'm calling regarding my grandmother Ruth Blake's estate. I'd like to schedule a consultation about a trust matter. Please call me back. He called 2 hours later. Henry. His voice was smooth, practiced. I was sorry to hear about your recent difficulties. How can I help? I'd like to discuss my grandmother's trust, specifically the amendment filed in July 2019. A pause. That's a closed matter, Henry. The estate was settled years ago. I understand. But I'm listed as a contingent beneficiary. I'd like to review the terms. Another pause. Longer. I'm not sure what you're hoping to accomplish. I'm hoping to understand what I'm entitled to see, I said, as a named beneficiary. Silence. Then, let me check my calendar. Can you come to the office next week? Yes. Tuesday, October 10th, 2 p.m. I'll have the file pulled. Thank you. He hung up. I set down my phone and looked at the dismissal order still sitting on my desk. Dismissed. I thought about calling Donald, telling him I'd scheduled a meeting with his attorney, asking him why he'd never mentioned the trust amendment, why he'd refused to testify, to help, to acknowledge me during the 4 months I'd spent waiting for exoneration. I thought about the call, then call someone else. I picked up my phone and texted Joshua instead. Can I ask you a legal question? He replied 3 minutes later. Always. What's up? If someone is named as a contingent beneficiary in a trust, are they entitled to see the trust documents? Generally, yes. Depends on the state. Why? Just curious. Henry. What's going on? I didn't reply. October 10th arrived cold and gray. First real freeze of the season. I wore the same sweater I'd worn to my arraignment and took the bus downtown. Blake & Associates occupied the 8th floor of a glass tower on Nicollet Mall. I checked in with the receptionist, sat in the waiting area under recessed lighting and abstract art. Kessler appeared at 2:03, mid-50s, silver hair, navy suit. He shook my hand, led me to a conference room with a view of the skyline. A manila folder sat on the table. Before we begin, he said, I want to clarify something. I represent your father's firm. Anything we discuss may be shared with him. Are you comfortable with that? Yes. He opened the folder. The trust amendment. You wanted to review it. I want to know if there have been any subsequent amendments. His expression didn't change. What makes you think there have been? I'd like to see the current version of the trust. He leaned back. Henry, what's this really about? I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, I was arrested in May. Felony assault. My father refused to provide an alibi even though he'd called me the night of the alleged crime. I spent 4 months facing a potential life sentence. He never visited, never testified, never called. 3 weeks ago I was exonerated. He still hasn't called. Kessler said nothing. I'd like to know, I continued, if any changes were made to my grandmother's trust during those 4 months. Specifically, changes affecting my status as a beneficiary. He closed the folder. I need to consult with Donald before releasing any additional documents. I'm a named beneficiary. I have a legal right to... I understand your position. He stood. I'll be in touch. He walked me to the elevator. I rode down alone, watching the floor numbers descend. Outside, the wind had picked up. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Claire, your father's assistant. Donald would like to speak with you. Are you available this evening? I stopped on the sidewalk. People streamed past me. Briefcases, coffee cups, phones pressed to ears. I typed, no, deleted it. Typed, where? The reply came immediately. Your apartment. He has the address. 6 p.m. I stared at the screen. He didn't have my address. I'd never told him about the motel, which meant he'd found out, which meant he'd been keeping track. I texted back, fine. I had 90 minutes to prepare. I moved the motel desk to face the door. Laptop open, plugged in. Printed documents in 3 stacks. Timeline on the left. Trust records in the center. Phone logs on the right. The dismissal order at the bottom, weighted down by my grandmother's chess set. the White King, chipped at the base. I made coffee in the room's small maker. It came out weak and bitter. I drank it anyway. At 5:47 p.m., I sat down at the desk and waited. He arrived at 6:14. 3 sharp knocks. I opened the door. Donald stood in the fluorescent hallway, slightly out of breath. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, collar unbuttoned. His hair, still mostly dark, graying at the temples, looked uncombed. His face was flushed. "Henry." I stepped aside. He walked in, stopped in the middle of the room, took in the desk setup. His eyes moved from the laptop to the papers to the chess piece. "What is this?" he said. "Sit down." "I'll stand." "Suit yourself." I returned to the desk chair. He stayed standing, hands in his pockets, 3 feet from the door. "Martin called me," he said. "Said you came to the office, asked about the trust." "I did. Why?" I picked up the top sheet from the center stack. "Amendment to the Ruth Blake Revocable Living Trust, dated July 15, 2019. Section 4B, names me as contingent beneficiary if you predeceased grandma. She died 3 weeks later. I inherited nothing. The estate was distributed according to her will. I'm not talking about the will. I'm talking about the trust." He shifted his weight. "What exactly do you want, Henry?" I set down the amendment and picked up another document. "This is the probate docket. Grandmother's estate closed March 2020, standard distribution. Then I found this." I held up a different sheet. "Trust modification filed July 2023, 4 months after my arrest." Want to guess what it says? His jaw tightened. "That's a private family matter." "I'm family." "You don't understand the—" "I'm still listed in the trust," I said. "So I requested a copy from Martin. He refused. Said he had to consult with you first, which means something changed. Which means you amended it while I was sitting in jail." Donald said nothing. I leaned back. "Here's what I think happened. Grandma named me contingent beneficiary in 2019, probably over your objection. She died. The trust became irrevocable. I stayed in the trust structure whether you liked it or not. Then I got arrested. Felony assault. Potential conviction. And you thought, he's going to prison. He'll be a liability. A scandal. That's not. So you amended the trust in July, while I was still facing charges, while you were refusing to testify on my behalf." I paused. "What did you change? Did you remove me entirely? Reduce my share? Add a morality clause?" He stepped forward. "You have no idea what you're talking about." I picked up the phone log printout from the right stack. "May 2, 2023, 9:04 p.m. Incoming call from your mobile number. Duration, 3 minutes, 41 seconds. You called me. We talked about Grandma's birthday flowers. You claim not to remember that conversation when I was arrested 3 days later." I set it down. Picked up another sheet. "May 5th, 2023, 10:33 p.m. I called you from the Hennepin County Jail. You were at the Guthrie Foundation Gala. I told you I'd been arrested for felony assault. I told you I needed you to verify I was home the night of May 2nd. You said—" I looked at him. "What did you say?" He stared at the papers on the desk. "You said, 'I'm giving remarks in 10 minutes. My voice stayed level. "I said I was facing serious charges. You said, 'Call your mother.' I said, 'Mom's been dead for 6 years. You said, 'Then call someone else.' And you hung up." Henry. I sat in jail for 4 months. Public defender. Bail posted by my ex-girlfriend's mother, a woman I barely know. You never visited, never called, never testified. You sent your assistant with an email referral to some defense attorney I couldn't afford." I paused. "But you had time to amend Grandma's trust in July." His face had gone pale. "I was protecting the family's interests." "Whose family?" "There were legal considerations. If you'd been convicted—" "I wasn't convicted. I was innocent. You knew that. You knew I was home that night because you called me. But you refused to say it under oath. It wasn't that simple. It was exactly that simple." He took another step forward, voice rising. "You don't understand the position I was in. The firm's reputation, the clients, the business dinner was more important." "It wasn't a business dinner." The words came out sharp, too loud. He caught himself, exhaled. It was the foundation gala, major donors. The governor was there. I was giving the keynote on estate planning legislation. I couldn't just leave. I called you from jail. I know. And you hung up. He looked away. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Silence. Outside, a siren passed on Lake Street, Dopplering into the distance. Donald moved to the window, stared out at the parking lot. What do you want, Henry? Money? I can write you a check right now. I don't want your money. Then what? I stood up, walked to the desk, picked up the chess piece, the white king, and turned it in my hand. I want to know what you changed in the trust. That's not... Martin will have to tell me eventually. I'm a beneficiary. I have legal standing to request documents. So you can tell me now, or I can force it through the courts. He turned from the window. You'd sue me? If necessary. He stared at me. I held his gaze. After a long moment, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. Scrolled, tapped, held it out. Here. I took it. The screen showed a scanned PDF, trust amendment, dated July 12, 2023. I scrolled through it. Legal language, section modifications, beneficiary restructuring. Section 4B had been revised. Contingent beneficial interest shall pass to Henry Blake upon condition that he has not been convicted of any felony offense. In the event of conviction, said interest shall pass to Joshua Blake in full. I read it twice, handed the phone back. You added a morality clause, I said. A protection clause. You assumed I'd be convicted. I assumed the worst-case scenario. He pocketed the phone. That's what estate planning is. Protecting assets from me, from risk. I laughed. It came out harsh, empty. You sat in that gala and gave a keynote about protecting families. Then you hung up on your son and hired a lawyer to write me out of the will. The trust, he corrected, not the will. And I didn't write you out. I added a condition. While I was in jail. Yes, facing charges you could have helped dismiss. He said nothing. I walked back to the desk, picked up the timeline, held it out. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to request a full copy of the trust from Martin. If he refuses, I'll petition the probate court. I'm going to document every interaction we've had since May. Calls, emails, the arraignment you didn't attend, the texts from your assistant. And I'm going to file a complaint with the state bar. His head snapped up. On what grounds? You drafted a trust amendment affecting a family member while that family member was facing criminal charges. Charges you had material evidence to refute. That's a conflict of interest. Maybe more than that. That's insane. Is it? I set down the timeline. You're an estate planning attorney. You amended a trust to disinherit your son in the event of his conviction. A conviction you could have prevented by testifying. You profited from my legal jeopardy. I didn't profit. You secured Joshua's inheritance. Your stepson, the one who actually showed up to my arraignment. I paused. How much is the trust worth now? The house in Edina sold, right? Investments compounded? He went very still. I don't want the money, I said again. I want the record. I want Martin to explain to a bar committee why he witnessed that amendment. I want you to explain why a phone call to verify your son's alibi was less important than keynote remarks. You're trying to destroy me. No, I'm trying to make you tell the truth. He stared at me. Then he reached into his jacket again, not for his phone this time. He pulled out a plain envelope, set it on the desk. There's $15,000 in there, he said. Take it, move out of this place, get a real apartment. We can fix this. I looked at the envelope. Didn't touch it. I don't want your money, Dad. Then what do you want? I met his eyes. I want you to leave. He blinked. Henry, leave. He stood there for another 5 seconds. Then he picked up the envelope, put it back in his jacket, and walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the knob. I'm sorry, he said. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I didn't respond. He opened the door and walked out. The door clicked shut. I stood in the middle of the room, listening to his footsteps recede down the hallway. The stairwell door opened and closed. A car engine started in the parking lot, tires on asphalt, fading. I sat down at the desk. The papers were still there, timeline, trust documents, phone logs. The coffee had gone cold. Outside, the sky was deepening to purple, streetlights flickering on. My phone buzzed. A text from Joshua. "Everything okay?" I typed. "Yes." Deleted it. Typed, "Getting there." I sent it. Set down the phone. Picked up the chess piece, white king, chipped base, and placed it back on top of the dismissal order. The room was quiet. For the first time in 5 months, I felt something close to calm. I filed the complaint on October 17, 2023. The Minnesota Office of Lawyers' Professional Responsibility had a web portal, clinical, efficient. I filled out the form in the motel room over 3 hours. Respondent, Donald Blake, attorney license number 0157834. Nature of complaint, conflict of interest, failure to maintain professional boundaries in family legal matters, material omission of exculpatory evidence. I attached 12 documents, phone logs, trust amendments, timeline, the arrest record and dismissal order, the email from Donald's assistant with the attorney referral, a sworn affidavit describing the May 5 phone call. I read through it twice before submitting. At 11:47 p.m., I clicked File Complaint. The confirmation screen appeared. Case number C-2023-1847. Estimated review time, 60-90 days. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark. On October 23rd, I received an email from the OLPR. Your complaint has been assigned to investigator Linda Morrison. Respondent will be notified within 10 business days. Do not contact respondent directly regarding this matter. I forwarded the email to Joshua with no message. He called 6 minutes later. "Henry, what did you do?" "What I said I would." "A bar complaint? Against Dad?" "Yes." Silence on the line. Then, "He's going to fight this." "I know. It could take months. It could go nowhere." "I know that too." He exhaled. "Do you need anything? A lawyer or—" "No, I just thought you should know." "Henry." He paused. "Why did you copy me on this?" I looked at the motel window. Rain streaking the glass, headlights blurring past. "Because you showed up when no one else did. And because the trust amendment affects you too." "What do you mean?" "If I'd been convicted, you would have inherited my share." "Did you know that?" Long silence. "No." July 12, 2023.
He added a morality clause. "I'm out if I'm convicted." "You're in." Jesus. "You should request a copy of the trust. As a beneficiary, you're entitled to see it." "Henry, I'm not angry at you, Josh, but you should know what he did." He didn't respond for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was quiet. "I'll testify." "If they call me." "You don't have to." "Yeah, I do." He hung up. November passed, slowly. I moved out of the motel on October 15th, found a studio apartment in Uptown, $950 a month, month-to-month lease. 1 room, kitchenette, bathroom with a shower that dripped. I brought my 4 boxes, my laptop, the chess set. I worked. Freelance contracts, compliance audits, expense reports. I billed 40 hours some weeks, 10 others. Money came in. I paid rent, bought groceries, sent Elena Ruiz a check for $2,500 with a note. "Thank you. I'm okay now." She sent it back with a single sentence. "Keep it. You'll need it more than I will." I didn't argue. On November 9th, I received a letter from Martin Kessler. Firm letterhead, formal language. "I have been made aware of your recent filing with the OLPR. As an attorney involved in the reference trust matter, I may be called to provide testimony. Please be advised that I will cooperate fully with any investigation. I want you to know that I deeply regret any pain this situation has caused you and your family." I read it twice, filed it in the box labeled 2023. On November 14th, Donald's response was filed. I received a copy via email, 32 pages. Denial of wrongdoing, assertion of appropriate professional conduct, claimed that the trust amendment was made at the request of other family members concerned about estate stability. I read it once, didn't respond. On November 20th, Margaret sent an email, not to Donald's account, to me directly. "Henry, I hope this message finds you well. I want you to know that I was not aware of the trust amendment until after it was executed. Donald made that decision without consulting me. I understand you're angry, and you have every right to be. I should have done more when you were arrested. I should have visited. I should have pushed Donald to testify. I didn't. And I'm sorry.
If there's anything I can do now, please let me know. Margaret. I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. Then I typed, "Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate the apology. I don't need anything right now." I sent it. Closed my email. The investigator's report came on December 3rd, 62 pages, summarizing interviews, documents, findings. I read it in one sitting at my kitchen table, coffee going cold beside me. Interview with Donald Blake, November 2nd, 2023. Mr. Blake confirmed that he received a phone call from his son Henry Blake on May 5th, 2023, while attending a public event. He stated that he was unable to provide immediate assistance due to professional obligations. He denied that his refusal to testify was related to the subsequent trust amendment. Interview with Martin Kessler, November 8th, 2023. Mr. Kessler confirmed that he drafted the July 2023 trust amendment at Mr. Blake's request. He stated that the amendment was intended to protect estate assets in the event of a felony conviction. When asked whether he considered the potential conflict of interest given Mr. Blake's ability to provide exculpatory testimony in the criminal case, Mr. Kessler stated he did not make that connection at the time. Interview with Joshua Blake, November 15th, 2023. Mr. Joshua Blake testified that he was not aware of the trust amendment until October 2023. He confirmed that he attended Henry Blake's arraignment in June 2023 and that Donald Blake did not attend. He stated that Margaret Blake informed him of Henry's arrest in late May and that Donald Blake seemed reluctant to discuss it. Findings. While Mr. Donald Blake's refusal to provide testimony in his son's criminal case was not, in itself, a violation of professional conduct rules, the timing and nature of the trust amendment raises questions about potential conflicts of interest. Specifically, Mr. Blake stood to benefit indirectly from his son's conviction through the restructuring of trust assets. Minnesota Rule of Professional Conduct 1.7 prohibits representation when there is a significant risk that the representation will be materially limited by a personal interest of the lawyer. Recommendation, private admonition. Mr. Blake should be counseled regarding the appearance of impropriety in family legal matters, where personal interests may conflict with professional duties. I set down the report, looked out the window. December snow falling, light and dry, dusting the cars parked on the street below. Private admonition. Not disbarment, not suspension. A warning, behind closed doors, that wouldn't appear on his public record. I'd expected that. I didn't feel disappointed. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. On December 10th, the OLPR sent the final determination letter. Donald would receive a private admonition. The complaint file would remain confidential. No public discipline. The letter thanked me for bringing the matter to their attention and reminded me that I could appeal if I disagreed with the outcome. I didn't appeal. On December 12th, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize. Patricia Hollings, Senior Partner, Blake & Associates. The subject line, Firm Policy Update. Dear Henry, I'm writing to inform you that Blake & Associates has implemented new internal policies regarding attorney conflicts of interest in family legal matters. All attorneys are now required to disclose family relationships in estate planning cases and to recuse themselves where personal interests may arise. We have also retained an outside ethics consultant to review our procedures. These changes are not an admission of wrongdoing, but rather a commitment to maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct. Respectfully, Patricia Hollings. I read it once, didn't reply. On December 18th, Joshua sent a text. Dad's taking a leave of absence. Early retirement, officially. Firm restructuring. I thought you should know. I typed, okay, sent it. Deleted the conversation. Christmas came. I didn't hear from Donald. I didn't expect to. Margaret sent a card, generic winter scene, handwritten note inside. Wishing you peace in the new year. No return address. I set it on the kitchen counter for a week, then recycled it. Joshua sent a text on Christmas Eve. Coffee sometime? No pressure. I replied, maybe in the new year. Elena Ruiz called on Christmas morning. Asked how I was doing, if I was eating, if I needed anything. I told her I was fine. She didn't believe me, but didn't push. Before she hung up, she said, your mother would be proud of you. I didn't know what to say to that. Thank you, I managed. Feliz Navidad, Henry. Feliz Navidad. On January 4, 2024, I received a certified letter. Return address, Blake and Associates. Inside was a check for $47,000, a note paperclipped to it, handwritten on firm stationery. Henry, this represents the contingent trust distribution that would have passed to you under the original 2019 amendment, calculated with interest. I've resigned as trustee. Joshua has agreed to serve in my place. The trust has been re-amended to remove the morality clause. You're restored as contingent beneficiary. No conditions. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to have what Grandma intended. Dad, I held the check. Looked at the number. $47,000. There was his signature in the bottom corner. I thought about cashing it. I thought about tearing it up. I thought about framing it next to the dismissal order and the chess piece. Instead, I folded it in half, put it in an envelope, and wrote on the outside, "Received January 4th, 2024. Not cashed." I filed it in the box labeled 2023. Then I opened my laptop and sent an email to Joshua. "Thank you for taking over as trustee. I appreciate it. Let's get coffee in February." He replied 4 minutes later. "Sounds good. I'll text you." I closed my email, sat at the kitchen table. Snow falling outside the window, the kind that sticks. My studio apartment, small, quiet, mine. Laptop open, half-empty coffee mug, the chess set on the shelf, white king still chipped. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel whole, but I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 months. I felt like I could breathe. February 14th, 2024. Valentine's Day. Joshua suggested a coffee shop in Northeast, a place called Spy House, exposed brick and high ceilings, always crowded. I arrived 10 minutes early, ordered black coffee, and sat by the window. He walked in at 2:03, wearing a law school hoodie and a winter coat dusted with snow, spotted me, waved, ordered at the counter. When he sat down, he looked tired. "Thanks for meeting," he said. "Thanks for asking." We sat in silence for a moment. He stirred his coffee, latte, foam art wilting. Outside, a bus passed, its shadow sliding across our table. "I talked to the trust attorney last week," he said. "Your distributions are set up. You'll get quarterly statements now. Everything's clean. I appreciate it. I also talked to Mom. She wants to know if you'd be open to dinner sometime. No pressure, just her and me. Not Dad." I considered it. Margaret, who had apologized, who had sent the Christmas card, who hadn't known about the amendment until after. "Maybe," I said. "Not yet." He nodded. "That's fair." Another silence. A barista called out a name. Someone laughed at the counter. "How's school?" I asked. "Exhausting. Contracts, torts, civil procedure. I'm drowning in reading." He paused. "I've been thinking about switching focus. Less corporate law, more public interest. Guardianship cases, elder law, that kind of thing." "Because of this?" He looked at me. "Partly. I watched how the system treated you. I watched my stepfather prioritize his firm over his son. It made me think about what kind of lawyer I want to be. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm not trying to make this about me," he added quickly. I wanted you to know. What you did mattered. The complaint, the documentation, all of it. It changed things. It got him a private warning. It got him to retire. It changed firm policy. It made me and Mom look at him differently. Joshua leaned forward. "That's not nothing." I looked down at my coffee. "I didn't do it for that." "I know, but it happened anyway." We sat there. The coffee shop noise filled the gaps. Espresso machines hissing, chairs scraping, conversations layering over each other. "Do you hate him?" Joshua asked. I thought about it. The arrest, the call, the 4 months, the envelope on the desk. "No," I said. "I just don't need him anymore." Joshua nodded slowly. "I get that." We finished our coffee. He asked about my work. I told him about the freelance contracts, the studio apartment, the quiet routine I'd built. He told me about his study group, his part-time job at a legal clinic, his plan to take the bar exam in July. Before we left, he said, "I know this is weird. Us having coffee, trying to figure out how to be, whatever we are. Brothers-in-law? Step-siblings? I don't even know what to call it. We don't have to call it anything." "Yeah, I guess not." He smiled, tired but genuine. "Same time next month?" "Sure." We walked out into the cold. He headed toward the light rail. I walked the other direction, hands in my pockets, breath fogging in the air. The letter from Donald arrived on March 8th. Plain envelope, handwritten address, no return label. I opened it standing in my kitchen, coat still on. 2 pages, blue ink. His careful script. Henry, I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to justify what I did. I know there's nothing I can say that would make it right, but I owe you an accounting, and I want to give it to you in my own words, not through lawyers or mediators. When you called me from jail, I was standing in the Guthrie Theater lobby, 30 seconds from going on stage. I had a speech memorized, donors waiting, the governor in the front row. I heard your voice, and I panicked. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't know how to care in that moment. I chose the speech. I chose the applause. I chose the path that required nothing from me. That night, I called Margaret from the car. I told her what happened. She asked if I was going to help you. I said I didn't know. She didn't push, neither did I. In June, when your lawyer asked me to testify, I told myself it wasn't necessary. The charges would be dropped. The system would work. I was lying to myself. I knew what my testimony could do. I chose not to give it. In July, I amended the trust. I told myself it was a precaution, a legal safeguard. But the truth is I was preparing for you to be convicted. I was protecting the estate from you, from the son I'd already abandoned. When you were exonerated, I felt relief. And then I felt nothing. I didn't call because I didn't know what to say. I didn't visit because I was afraid of what you'd become. Not a criminal, but someone who could see me clearly. You filed the bar complaint. I was angry at first. Then I read your documentation, the timeline, the phone logs, the trust amendment next to the arrest dates. I saw what I'd done, reflected back in black and white. I saw a man who chose a keynote speech over his son's freedom. I'm not that man anymore, or I'm trying not to be. I've left the firm. I'm not practicing law. I'm spending time with Margaret, trying to repair what I broke with her. I'm in therapy, something I should have done years ago, after your mother died. I'm not asking you to respond to this letter. I'm not asking for contact. I just wanted you to have the full accounting, not the legal version, the true one. You deserved better. You deserved a father who showed up. I'm sorry I wasn't him. Dad, I read it twice. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and placed it in the box labeled 2023. I didn't throw it away. I didn't respond. March became April. Snow melted, leaving gray slush and pale grass. The days lengthened. I took a new contract. Risk analysis for a mid-sized nonprofit. 3-month project. Stable pay. I worked from the kitchen table. Windows open, letting in cold spring air. Joshua and I met for coffee twice more. Easier each time. We talked about movies, about his exams, about a case he was working on at the legal clinic. We didn't talk about Donald. Margaret sent an email in mid-April, thinking of you, hope you're well. I replied, thank you. I am. Elena called once a month, asked how I was eating, if I'd made any friends, if I was taking care of myself. I told her I was trying. She seemed satisfied with that. On April 30th, I cashed the check. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because keeping it folded in an envelope felt like holding on to something that wasn't mine anymore. $47,000. I deposited it, paid off old debts, moved the rest into savings. Then I called Joshua. Hey, I said when he picked up. I wanted to let you know. I cashed the trust distribution. Good, he said. That's what it was for. I'm thinking about taking a trip. Somewhere I've never been. Maybe the Pacific Northwest. Drive up the coast. That sounds great. I was wondering if you wanted to get dinner before I go. You and Margaret, if the offer's still open. He paused. Really? Yeah. Let me talk to her. I'll text you. Thanks. Henry? Yeah. I'm glad you called. I hung up, stood in my kitchen. The afternoon light came through the window, soft and gold. The chess set on the shelf, white king still chipped, still there. The laptop closed. Coffee mug in the sink, rinsed clean. I thought about the call. I'm giving remarks in 10 minutes. I thought about the jail cell, the fluorescent lights, the clipboard. Next of kin, declined. I thought about the timeline, the trust, The bar complaint. The check. Finally cashed. I thought about the letter, folded in the box. You deserved better. He was right, but I didn't need him to say it anymore. May 12th, 2024. I met Margaret and Joshua at a small Italian restaurant in St. Paul. Margaret arrived first, nervous hands, careful smile. Joshua came 5 minutes later. We ordered pasta, shared bread, talked about neutral things, Joshua's upcoming exams, Margaret's foundation work, my plans for the coast. Halfway through the meal, Margaret set down her fork. Henry, I want to say something. I should have done more. When you were arrested, when Donald refused to help, I should have pushed harder. I should have visited you. I didn't, and I regret it. You apologized, I said. I read it. I know, but I wanted to say it to your face. I looked at her. She looked older than I remembered, tired, sincere. Thank you, I said. She nodded. We finished the meal. No one mentioned Donald. Afterward, in the parking lot, Joshua hugged me. Drive safe. Send photos. I will. Margaret hugged me too. Brief, tentative. Take care of yourself. You too. I drove home, packed my car that night. Laptop, clothes, the chess set wrapped in a towel. The next morning, I left the keys with my landlord, forwarded my mail, and headed north. I drove through Minnesota, into Wisconsin, across the Upper Peninsula. I stopped in small towns, ate at diners, slept in motels. I reached the Pacific in early June, Oregon coast, gray skies and cold wind, waves crashing on black rocks. I stood on a beach south of Cannon Rock, hands in my pockets, watching the water. A woman walked past with a dog, gulls circled overhead. The air smelled like salt and kelp. I thought about my grandmother, her house in Edina, the porch where we played chess, the way she'd let me win when I was young and stopped letting me win when I got older. I thought about my mother, dead 6 years, the way she used to make coffee in the morning, humming off key. I thought about Donald, the letter, the check, the apology I didn't ask for. I thought about Joshua, coffee once a month, trying. I thought about Elena Ruiz, who'd bailed me out when my father wouldn't. I thought about the timeline, the documentation, the quiet victory that felt less like victory and more like survival. The waves kept coming. The gulls kept circling. The wind kept blowing. I turned and walked back toward the car. The White King, chipped and scarred, sat in the passenger seat, wrapped carefully in a towel. I picked it up, held it for a moment, then set it back down. I didn't know where I was going next. I didn't need to. I started the engine, pulled onto the coast highway. The ocean disappeared behind me. Ahead, the road curved into fog. I drove.